each week. How stupid can you be? You know, how stupid can you be? Matter of fact, I'm gonna go to I had this scripture a little later, but I'm gonna go here first, and then we'll backtrack a little bit and hit those other points. This is Ecclesiasticus, the 43rd chapter and the 6th verse. How stupid can you be when the scriptures are clear that the lights in the heavens were created for signs, seasons, days, and years, right? The moon or the month is called after. Well, let me read it. Let's read it. Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, chapter 43, verse 6. He made the moon also to serve in her season for a declaration of times. See, he made the moon. Who made the Most High made the moon also to serve in her season for a declaration of times. Why? Because the moon is really what governs time. It's not the sun, it's not the stars, it's not the heavenly host of heaven, the planets. It's the moon that governs the times. The Most High made the moon for this purpose. You know, he made it for that purpose. You know, the sun is a greater light which governs the day, and the moon is a lesser light that governs the night. But the moon is what the Most High set up to govern the times. All right. So it says he made the moon also to serve in her season for a declaration of times, and a sign of the world, because that's how, you know, through certain lunar eclipses and solar eclipses, we know that the time of the end is coming soon, right? It says from the moon is a sign of feast, because that's bottom line. The moon is what governs time, the time period of when a month begins, when a week begins, what is the first day of the week, what is the second day of the week, when the feasts come in. That's why Issachar was able to know when certain things or certain events will take place by checking out the moon. And the calendar that they held was based upon the moon. You know, they used the sun and the moon because they had like they had the pagan worship, but the main thing that was given to govern times is the moon. It says, "From the moon is a sign of feasts, a light that decreaseth in her perfection. The month is called after her name." Why? Why is the month called after her name? Because when the new moon comes in, that's what begins the next cycle of the next month. So you have days, you have, or even if you go before that, you have seconds, you have minutes, you have hours, you have days, you have weeks, you have months, and you have years, and they all correlate, or they all come together as one. There's no separation there. Where's the separation in these times? They all work as one conjunction, one unit, like a watch. A watch has many different components, but they all work together for one purpose. For what? To tell time. That's the same thing with the moon. The moon works to govern these times. So I'm gonna read it again. It says the month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully in her changing, being an instrument of the armies above, shining in the firmament of heaven. All right, so that's what governs the times, the moon. All right, now let's go from there to the book of 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel, the 20th chapter, and we're gonna jump around a little bit, and you know, the computer's running a little slow, so you know, just bear with me. We're gonna jump around a little bit in this chapter, but if you want whatever we lesson we go over, we don't have enough time to go through every detail, so you brothers can go back and read, you know, the chapters on your own. 1 Samuel chapter 20 verse 5. And David said unto Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meat, but let me go, that I may hide myself in the field unto the third day at evening. So letting you know that the moon is what governs the days. The days of what? The days of the month, the days of the week. They're not separate from each other like these jackasses try to show you out there. They try to tell you that the weekly Sabbaths and the monthly Sabbaths are two separate things. All kind of madness. When it's simple. The Most High did not make things complicated. He made it simple. And David said unto Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is a new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meat, but let me go, that I may hide myself in the field unto the third day at evening. Alright, so we're going to jump down to the 24th verse. It says, So David hid himself in the field, And when the new moon was come, the king sat him down to eat meat. And the king sat upon his seat, and as at other times, even upon a seat by the wall. And Jonathan arose, and Abner sat by Saul's side, and David's place was empty. Nevertheless, Saul spake not anything that day, for he thought something had befallen him. He is not clean, surely he is not clean. And it came to pass on the morrow, which was the next day after the new moon, which was the second day of the month. Okay, so now keep in mind that the new moon was the first day of the month. The month is called after the moon's name. And then here we're dealing with the new moon. And when King Saul sat down to eat on the new moon, King David didn't come before him. So then the next day was the second day of the month. And we read in the 5th verse where King David, or what should I say back then, David told Jonathan, look, let me just, disappear until the 3rd day of the month. That David's place was empty. Let me read it again. And it came to pass on the morrow, which was the 2nd day of the month, that David's place was empty. And Saul said unto Jonathan his son, wherefore cometh not the son of Jesse to meat, neither yesterday nor today? So that's letting you know that the moon, or the new moon, is what governs the month, is what governs the days of the week and of the month. That starts the cycle, all right? Now, before I read on anything else, I want to go to this article here. It's called The Weekly Sabbath is Not Saturday or Sunday. See? Because that's another lie that's been taught, that the Sabbath is on a Saturday or a Sunday, which the so-called Christians and the Roman Catholics and them worship Sunday, which they worship in the sun. Now, the so-called Jews worship Saturday as the Sabbath, okay? Because they're the motherfucking devil, all right? That's right. I said it. I said motherfucker. They're the motherfucking devil, all right? That's why they worship Saturday, and that goes into something else. And if we have time at the end of the lesson, I'll touch on it real quick. It says the weekly Sabbath is not Saturday or Sunday. The true weekly Sabbaths are determined by the phases of the moon, not a carnal count, not a carnal count of 1 through 7. See, so the things that this guy wrote in this web page is the same thing that beginning with Elder Tahar, because the Spirit of the Lord revealed to Elder Tahar about the new moons. And when he went through it, and we went through it, it made sense. It's like, yeah, this is the way to keep the Sabbath. Now, when I read this article today, which I read it today being August 3rd of 2010, when I read this article and I'm reading through it, I'm like, damn, man, did this guy listen to us? Things that we said. Because he's saying, similar, not everything, because he has his own little spins, but pretty much what he said concerning the new moon and the Sabbath is the same thing that we teach. And we didn't go and read anything anywhere when we learned about it, beginning with Elder Tahar. The Spirit of the Lord came upon the man, and he revealed to him that the Sabbath is governed by the new moon. All right, and this is what this guy said. The true weekly Sabbaths are determined by the phases of the moon, not a carnal count of 1 through 7. Like a carnal count would be Sunday is the first day, Monday is the second day, Tuesday is the third day, so on and so forth, and Saturday is the 7th day. It's not governed that way. It's governed by the moon. And then it gives you the scripture, Genesis 1 and 14 and Psalms 104 and 19, which I didn't read Psalms 104 and 19, so if you brothers have time, you can check it out. It says, compared to Leviticus 23, 2-3. And this scripture here in Leviticus, is a scripture, not just the 2nd and the 3rd verse concerning the Passover. That's always one of the scriptures that I always use to for my personal use, so to speak, to prove that the Sabbaths are governed by the new moon. And then we'll get into that. Let's take a look at the creation Sabbath, also known as the lunar Sabbath. The lunar Sabbath is one of the most provable doctrines found in Scripture, and one of the hardest to get people to take an honest look at. And he's right. Lunar Sabbaths not only can be conclusively proven from Scripture, but mathematically, historically, scientifically, and from nature itself. The very first time the word Sabbath is mentioned in Scripture is when Yahweh, he has a tetragrammaton here, made it known to Moses in Exodus the 16th chapter, and it was connected to the moon on the 22nd, which by default causes the 8th, 15th, and 29th to also be Sabbaths. And he's correct. And beginning with Elder Tahar, we've always said that. we've always said that the new moon is the first day of the month, which is the Sabbath. Matter of fact, I'll break it down for you like this. The new moon, which is the first day, which is the first Sabbath, right? So that's the first day. 6 days work shall be done, and then the 7th day is a Sabbath, right? So if the new moon is a Sabbath, which is the first day, and you do work 6 days, right? 1 and 6 is what? 7, right? So then the second Sabbath of the month would come in when? On the 8th day. Why? Because the new moon, day 1, Sabbath, 6 days work, right? That's 7 days. 6 and 1 is 7. Then the next day after the 6 days of work is a Sabbath, which is the 8th day. So the second Sabbath of the month would be 7 plus 1, which is 8. It says from the second Sabbath to the third is 7 more days, etc., 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 right? So then here you have it. 1 plus 7 is 8. The first Sabbath, which is a new moon, falls on the first. The second